The ongoing success of Helldivers 2 makes it easy to forget Offworld Starship Troopers Extermination launched into PC Early Access in May 2023, 7 months before it, and finally arrived on consoles with the version 1.0 release in October 2024, 9 months late. The post-launch roadmap still promises updates, including a much-needed overhaul of the Galactic Front campaign structure, and the small but consistent player base has fluctuated back and forth between positive and negative sentiment. Returning to it on console, 2 years after covering that early access build, it still offers chaotic cooperative fun with brisk progression mechanics and authentic Starship Troopers aesthetics. However, those looking for a daily fix will find the lack of variety becomes an issue for just a handful of missions. With a cooperative PvE shooter core, Starship Troopers Extermination has always benefited from simplicity. You can, and should, drop straight into the so-called main missions and learn as you go, especially as the base building tutorial and bland solo missions are not even remotely indicative of its potential. It's a class-based FPS with armored guardians and demolishers to hold the line, mobile rangers and snipers to mark and prioritize targets, and engineers and medics to provide support for structures and infantry. You run and gun between objective points, toss grenades and lay mines, and activate class-based abilities on a cooldown to try to turn the tide. There are few surprises where the shooting is concerned, but shredding a bug in a shower of gore looks and feels good. Starship Troopers Extermination's strengths and weaknesses are both tied to the evolving mission structure and base building elements. Missions follow a similar flow. You're dropped into the battlefield. You capture control points on the route towards a major objective. You defend refineries and gather ore. Build and defend a base until a timed or wave-based objective is fulfilled, and finally rush to extraction. Missions are dynamically generated across one of 3 large maps, with variable weather conditions, time of day, and difficulty mutators, but there's clearly a limited number of locations objectives can spawn. As a result, you'll soon end up taking the same routes and defending the same bases over and over again. For existing fans of the IP, there's a familiar roster of drones, warriors, and tiger elites that'll rush you, inferno and plasma bugs that'll bombard fortifications at range, an infuriating gunner bug that can whittle down your health from afar, and a massive tanker bug as a special event. Befitting the source material, their primary method of victory is overwhelming force, with each mission ramping up the threat level over time and tougher variants emerging. Surviving on foot is a challenge, even if you can coordinate all 16 players, but that is where the streamlined base building mechanic comes into play. Within designated areas, you can rapidly assemble outposts around a key structure, build layers of walls, bunkers, towers, turrets, automated sentries, and stockpiles of ammunition for inventory or turrets you'll need to maintain. Building options all fit into a single menu. You can rotate and align structures easily, and building or repairing simply involves holding down the trigger on the repair tool. On higher difficulties and during siege events, fortifications are the only viable way to survive an onslaught that is unrelenting by the time the extraction shuttles arrive. Mounting a turret, opening fire on an advancing horde, and watching bug corpses pile up against the walls looks and feels incredible. But building bases and coordinating defense is where Starship Troopers Extermination can also frustrate. Although each class has unique and powerful abilities and utility tools when used strategically, such as the Guardian's personal fortification or a medic's reviving drone, expanding fortifications and assigning enough infantry to man each approach is messy. Open chat in multiplayer games is the last thing I'd recommend, but even if you're just communicating with friends or within a 4-player fire team, that still leaves up to a dozen other players doing their own thing, and the incredibly limited ping system only marks waypoints or enemies. All too often, the quickest fire teams build up defenses on one side of the base while leaving gaps in the other, or separate from the group to complete optional mission objectives without alerting others to cover their absence. More than ever, I feel Starship Troopers Extermination still needs a more fleshed-out ping system that could be coupled with class or fire team-specific limitations. Giving each fire team a defined purpose might be useful, such as having one dedicated to engineers and base building, another for jetpack-equipped rangers to tackle distant objectives quickly. I'd also like to see a reduction in the speed at which the threat level escalates, if only to encourage groups pursuing optional mission objectives. It could add some much-needed variety, as you're often knee-deep in bugs within 10 minutes, and there's no viable way to break off from defending the primary objective. Of course, it's a tough ask going up against a competitor with the backing of a publisher the size of PlayStation, but if Starship Troopers Extermination could focus on polishing and diversifying what it already has, it could provide a much-needed alternative. If you've got this far, please consider giving the video a like and maybe subscribing to our channel, as it helps us grow.